for big data to new levels. We're going to get started. So I'd like to make introductions. My name is Phil Hotston. I'm the Senior Vice President for Enterprise Solutions for Bodhtree. And with me today are some of our esteemed guests. We have Bodhtree. We have GK Gouda, who is our CEO. GK is an industry veteran, having worked with software and security for the past 25 years with positions at Hitachi Consulting, HP, HCL, and Wipro. GK obtained management certifications from Stanford Graduate School of Business and the Japanese Management Association. GK has an MS in Electronics and Physics from the National Institute of Technology. GK, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Phil.
And from Cisco, we have Desmond Murray, Des, Senior Director of Information Technology at Cisco. Des is a 10-year veteran of Cisco IT. For the past 2 years, Des has been responsible for the enterprise data services, which includes data security. Prior to this role, Des ran the Cisco Sales IT application development portfolio. Before joining Cisco, Des was Director of International E-Business at Franklin Templeton Investments. Des holds a master's degree in economics from the University College Cork in Ireland. We're all delighted to have Des with us today. Des, thanks for taking the time to join us today and share your perspective on this important topic.
Thanks, Bill.
So with that, we're going to move to the agenda. So the agenda, we just gone through the introductions. GK is going to talk about the SecureTree perspective. That'll be followed by Des's talk on Cisco's data security approach. And during the presentation today, interdispersed, we're going to have 3 questions which the panelists will be able to give a response to. So if you look on the lower right-hand side of your webinar, you'll see 3 questions come up, and just give a response to the questions. And at the end of the discussions today, during the panel discussion, we'll give all of the attendees the results of the questions asked for the survey in the seminar. After the survey results, we'll be taking questions from the audience. There'll be a panel discussion with myself, GK, and Des. And then at the very end, for those of you that registered early, we have a drawing for a Kindle Fire giveaway. We'll announce the winner at that time. So what I'd like to do is to pass the baton to GK, and GK, have you address the slides on the SecureTree perspective. GK, it's all yours.
Thank you, Phil, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'll be spending next few minutes talking about Bodhtree system integration view of both security and big data. There is an explosion of data from a variety of devices, as we all know, and all the software product vendors are trying to help with the situation by providing products to address specific issues. The significant investments are made from security organizations to resolve these issues, but there is no comprehensive master view of the policies as well as the data security. On top of it, the unstructured data and explosion is further complicating the overall scenario in the security. On top of it, from an empowerment standpoint for individual employees, the consumer productivity apps and their usage by employees, which I would like to call it as bring your own applications, can no longer be ignored in a given enterprise context. So these are some of the examples on the situation that we are in today. Next slide, please. So we at Bodhtree look at security as one of the enabler of master security management. The master security management is a comprehensive security framework that actually helps you to federate all the security standards, but at the same time have a master view of the security footprint. There are standards such as XAML, OpenID, OAuth, and SAML, SAML, and these standards can talk to each other and also provide that master comprehensive view. So when it comes to enterprise need, Security as a solution will actually enable you to manage this overview. And the data flows inside out of these applications for both on-premise as well as cloud applications. At the same time, we should be able to create certain corporate standard, which is a real challenge for CISOs today. Next slide, please.
So, GK, let me jump in. This is our first audience polling question. You're going to see on the right-hand side your ability to select yes or no and hit your submit button. You're going to have about 2 minutes or so to answer the question. So the question is pretty simple. Does your enterprise currently have a unified security policy management framework? So we'll share this result at the end of the discussion. So just feel free to pop the question and submit the response. And moderator, let's go to the next slide, please. GK, it's all yours.
Okay, great. So there is another scenario. It is a big challenge for the leadership teams, and when they need to present and also create an awareness among the board members about some of these security threats. Over 80% of the enterprises will be required to report these state of the information security and the IT risk to the board members annually. To develop a comprehensive strategy and also look at variety of these threats, be it a cyber threat or be it certain financial loss, or it could be extended supply chains, and sometimes it could be brand and reputation damage related issues. These are all variety of things can no longer be ignored. As some of the famous reports from HP and few other industry leaders have already talked about this, the investments on security are increasing to address and also to create this awareness among the board members. The next slide, please. So here we talk about a comprehensive solution that Bodhtree as a system integrator. If you look at this slide, there are a variety of applications that every enterprise requires some kind of a comprehensive policy management. And the stakeholders' empowerment, at the same time be able to operate under the guidelines of enterprise security policy is well defined with the help from solutions such as enterprise policy manager, mainly to address specific issues such as identity management, provisioning, and policy management, and it could be user activity management, and also cloud security. We at Bodhtree strongly believe there are certain significant investments that are made in the enterprise. We should be able to leverage those investments, at the same time bring best of breed products to address each of these issues and provide that master security overview. Next slide, please. To summarize my thought process, I think security is a framework which actually brings you two pieces together. One is, as a platform, you should be able to integrate with variety of applications, as well as have a master security management view. At the same time, the data explosion in the form of unstructured data that is currently happening should also be able to cover using this entire framework. And there is a commonality between these two when it comes to managing the data, at the same time provide that security guidelines. Under the purview, we should be also be able to empower the stakeholders. Next slide, please.
Thanks, GK. So now we're on to question number 2. So for those of you that are looking at the polling question, from a security perspective, which of the following policies is the highest priority within your enterprise? So you have 4 possible responses. The first is BYOD, or bring your own device. The second is cloud applications. The third, C, is big data, and D is all of the above. So you'll have about 2 minutes to pop your answer to this and then hit your submit button. And then we'll show the results during the panel discussion. So moderator, you can move to the next slide, please. And so, Des, this is your slide. I'm going to pass the baton to you, and as with Cisco, you can get started.
Sure, thanks, Phil. And thank you again, Bodhtree, for the opportunity to chat to you guys today about data security in general, and I think what Cisco's doing. So I guess GK gave a pretty good overview of the sort of the market forces when it comes to data security. Every organization and every institution is dealing with this in one shape or another. Over the last few years, it's really come into focus, and Cisco is no exception to that. I think if we take a look at the slide here, internally at Cisco, we're dealing with a multitude of countervailing forces here. There's the global nature of the organization. Cisco has and has had for probably the last 5 years or so a BOID policy that from an applications perspective we support across the board. Cisco is heavily invested in the collaboration space from a product perspective, and we eat our own dog food, obviously. So internally, when it comes to our Jabber platform, our telepresence, et cetera, there's a lot of not just text-based collaboration, but video-based collaboration as well that we need to deal with. And of course, we've got cloud and sensitive data that potentially can sit in the cloud. What kind of relationships do we have with our cloud providers? And what's our ability to secure our data as it moves outside of our firewalls? So we have those on the one hand. On the other hand, then you have the acceptable use. For instance, I did previously work in a financial services industry, and they had some highly restrictive use policies in place with regard to how employees went out and accessed the internet and the sites that they were visiting, et cetera. At Cisco, that's not the case. We're much more open, I guess, to that kind of behavior. And of course, then you have your threats and your data loss. There's no shortage of bad guys out there that want to do bad things, and we continue to need to be vigilant in that space. So it's how, on the one hand, do we support our workforce and the changing environment that workforce is experiencing, and then on the second hand, be able to protect against new waves of attack by folks who don't have our best interests in mind. Let's move forward. This is just a quick sort of high level. Where is it coming from, right? There's well-meaning insiders, malicious insiders, and then the hackers, right? So this is just a very sort of quick high-level snapshot, and again, something that's not unique to Cisco, but across the board. As we kind of delve into it, if you wouldn't mind moving forward. As we delve into it, there's regulatory considerations that all of us are bound by, and this is sort of an example. And these are sort of non-optional, right? These are efforts that if you neglect, there's a real penalty associated with it. So I'm sure each of you has, in one way or another, experience with these regulatory requirements that we have on our data and data protection. If you'll move forward. And then as we kind of drill in specifically, and we begin to say, okay, how do we challenge, how do we wrap our arms around this security threat? How do we wrap our arms around, big data? I think, and it's a tendency, people tend to kind of get lost as to sort of say, well, where do we start? How do you begin the process of actually creating a meaningful data security policy? each organization, I'm sure, has a policy to one extent or another, but is it a policy that's written on a Word document and sits gathering dust somewhere, or is it meaningful from the point of view that it's actually enforceable? And for it to be meaningful, what degree of granularity is required for us to be able to support that flexibility of a workforce that brings their own devices, that uses cloud-based services that we want to encourage from a collaboration perspective, but then on the other hand is that we're able to secure that data from those threats that we sort of had outlined earlier on. And this kind of gives a very quick just snapshot of if I was to take one function within the Cisco domain, what are the types of things that when my team sits down and looks at a domain, that when we take that double click and we say, okay, from an IP perspective that we would need to protect, engineering obviously is one of those. What would that look like? When we say engineering, what do we mean? What's that next layer down of data types that we would need to have an awareness of and secure? And this is a quick example and a very quick snapshot. Again, nothing here that's unique to Cisco. Any company that develops any type of IP would have something similar and a similar list when you start breaking it down. And once you begin to do this for one function, and then you do it for the next one, marketing, you do it for sales, you do it for finance, you do it for HR, all of a sudden you're looking at this just massive amount of data and how easily it can be to get overwhelmed by the challenge that lies ahead. Where do you begin? What's the starting point? So probably about 18 months ago, actually may even be less, maybe about 15 months ago at Cisco, a few of the senior leaders sat down and looked at this with a real sort of real focus. Security was everybody's responsibility, but nobody's responsibility. It was very important, and obviously no one's going to say that security isn't, but were the investments there to actually meet that level of importance that people were talking about? So about 15 months ago, a group of senior IT leaders with their business counterparts sat down and said, well, what are we going to do about this, and how are we going to create a focus? And internally, we created something called a security accelerator. And that accelerator, basically, what the acceleration piece of that meant was, let's give this a very specific focus, and let's coordinate the resources that are currently across multiple functions, and give them that responsibility of data security for Cisco. Myself, along with some of my counterparts in the infrastructure organization, and also in the Cisco BUs, Cisco business units, who create secure products or security products. So we sat down and had these conversations and kicked off this accelerator program. Now, what you're going to see in the next couple of slides is what the steps were that we had agreed upon about what this overall approach needed to look like. How do we start this process? How do we wrap our arms around data security at any large enterprise? And I think these are the steps we came up with. You and your own organization may come up with a different flavor of this or have something similar. But the first sort of realization was this isn't really a technology play. This is a corporate governance and a corporate policy play initially. There's all kinds of technologies that are out there, but unless you've got the right governance and the right level of coordination across the various different functions and the right policies, then the technology is only as good as the policy that it gets to implement. And quite frankly, I think the policy challenge for us has probably been the greatest hurdle to overcome. The technology piece comes and goes. We've got some very strong products, I think, in this space, and we can talk to that a little bit about the products that we're using later on. But I think the initial challenge for us was around the governance piece and how do we get business organizations to care. What we didn't want to be as an IT group was to be that policing function. We didn't feel that if we were the corporate police, that would be that we would be able to be successful from an adoption perspective across the enterprise. The function and the function leads would need to take that responsibility and drive the awareness of security and data security down through their organizations, and then we would be enablers of that. But at the outset, to participate with them and to provide some technology support to be able to make their jobs a little bit easier. So the first step we had was around capture, classify. With such a great, just an ever-increasing amount of data for us to be able to wrap our arms around, how did we actually capture and classify that data? Classification here, we had Cisco restricted, Cisco confidential, Cisco public, very, very basic 3 steps around confidentiality. How do we actually go about then and capture some of that metadata and the usage and who owns that data, et cetera? So, it's not straightforward. Again, back to, and I'm going to take engineering as our example, getting business leadership in the engineering organization to take that ownership of sitting down, understanding the various different products, what is, well, for the want of a better word, what's data or what's code that we would want to share, that's publicly available, that we want people to take, adopt, and develop upon, and what's data that's our iOS code that's very specific and unique, that's part of our IP, that we want to secure. So one of the solutions that we're using in this step is once we have identified what that data is, once we've discovered basically what data it is that we want to secure and what classification we would put on it, then the next challenge was, well, where is that data? So step 1 would be, what's the data? Step 2 is, where is it? So we've developed some internal solutions for us to be able to basically do file crawling and machine learning. So taking images of this secure code that we wanted to make Cisco restricted and being able, without replicating the actual iOS code itself, being able to develop basically a profile of what a file containing this code would look like, and then be able to go out and get that visibility. Where does that code live today? And once we were able to identify that, that gave us the ability then to apply the policy to it, which is the next step. Policy definition. And this is, I think, where, being Cisco, being the network company, having an internal policy around BOID and having some Cisco products in this space, one of the interesting capabilities, I guess, that we have with a Cisco product called ISE, or Identity Service Engine. It provides us with context data. And I'll give you an example as to how we can get this, what I mean by context data, and then how in turn we're able to use that context data to create policy. So what the context basically is what device is connecting to what network and where is it? What's the geolocation of that, as an example? So what then we're able to do is take that context data and able to apply it then to the application level fine-grained access. So an example would be, for instance, if we have a sales dashboard that our head of sales has access to, and that head of sales is sitting in his office here in San Jose on his laptop, then he's got full access to all the various different tabs within that sales dashboard. He's got full drillability down to the country level or right down to the individual level from a sales perspective, as an example, if we're talking about a bookings report. However, we're able to take that policy and apply this contextual angle to it and say, if that sales leader is in an airport in China, and that sales leader is connecting on their iPhone, then we may restrict that leader's access to the data in the application. So it's a way of not just looking purely at the application-specific access and policies that go with that, but being able to create this type of dynamic policy which accounts for some of the challenges that a BOID work environment and really the realities of the workforce today kind of bring with it. So being able to pair the two using ISE, Identity Services Engine, which is a Cisco product, and also another Cisco product that we have called CEPM, which is that Cisco Enterprise Policy Manager, which is that umbrella policy manager that we have across, that we use across all the applications. So it's a really interesting combination of technology and policy as to how you can provide some of that flexibility in some of the ever-changing set of workforce that we have today. Step 3, now you've captured the data that you want to protect. You know where it is. You've got a policy that you have created around it. Now you've got to put that information somewhere. That information has to be in some form of centralized store that can be accessed, as distinct from fragmented across the various different applications, so that if you want to make a change to that policy, that you could update it once in one place, and then that's pervasive across the application landscape. Again, Cisco, very large enterprise, a lot of applications. I worked in the sales organization for many, many years. We have one flavor of every kind of technology you can think of. The challenge in being able to implement a policy in that kind of architectural environment is overwhelming. So our ability to be able to centralize some of that policy in one area, that was one of the big challenges that we faced, and thankfully we were able to provide a solution in the form of what we call Cisco CEPM, Cisco Enterprise Policy Manager, to be able to have that one centralized store for policy that the applications then can go and access. The next step 4, I probably talked a little bit about that, where now you've got the policy, you've captured the data that you want, you know the data that you want to protect, you've got the policy associated with it, you've got a store. Now the two have to be introduced. The data and the policy need to meet. And it's amazing the number of companies that I've talked to who have a security policy but have no way of implementing it, or they've only been able to implement portions or pieces of it. They don't have a way of implementing it in a comprehensive manner. And I think this is one of the challenges that that we have internally. We continue to have it. It's a big problem that we've got to try and address. We've gone some way to meet that, but there's always room for improvement here. Again, though, I think the key to it is by being able to really hone in on what data do you want to protect, and being very vigilant on that subset of data. And when you look at the world today and the amount of data that gets created, how much of it really is something that you need to protect versus, what, this is stuff that it's okay to let go, right? You really have to have that sort of Pareto rule, that 20%, 80%, 20% rule. If we keep moving forward, and if we look at it from a product perspective, I had mentioned this before, there's a combination effect that we have here at Cisco. We use a product called CEPM, which is that centralized store across all the various different tech stacks. We use ISE, which is a Cisco product as well, which is for providing that network-based context, like geo and device, being examples of how we can take that information and dynamically build it into the policy. And then we're also using a company called SkyHigh. And SkyHigh have a very interesting product that they're about to launch in the next couple of weeks here, and that has they have a play where they're able to identify the traffic that leaves the corporate firewall and goes out into the world of the cloud, and is able to track data as it moves out of the enterprise and through the cloud. They've got a very, very, very unique approach to this. They've not just got the ability to provide that visibility as to where your data is going, but they've also created sort of like an index of cloud providers and have been able to build up sort of a security benchmark around how secure these cloud providers are. Some very, very interesting dashboards that they can provide any chief security officer around where just how much data is leaving your enterprise and where it's going. Really interesting stuff. And I think a lot of the value that these guys bring is giving that visibility in a very consumable way to a CSO, and then also giving them the ability to implement policy as data leaves the firewall. So definitely a company to keep an eye on as they progress. So that's sort of our trifecta. Again, a centralized policy manager that's tech stack agnostic. So we're not tied into an Oracle OAM. We're not tied into any one, or we're not tied into Active Directory. We're not tied into any one technology stack to provide the centralized policy management flexibility. Because we're Cisco, obviously, we have to have a network play in there. I think with ISE, it gives us a lot of really cool options from a policy creation perspective and the ability to implement that. And then when it comes to cloud and some of the challenges we have in the cloud space, there are some very interesting technologies that are coming up in that space to allow us, again, get creative and really have a presence, not just internally from a security perspective, but externally as well. So these are the 5 steps that we sort of sat down and looked at. Where are we on that 15-month journey? We're probably about, I would say, about 60% the way through in having this be fully deployed across the enterprise. Where the greatest challenge for us is actually at the step 1 and step 2. It's the capture classify step and the policy creation piece and the governance that's required from our business functions to be able to come together and own this and not have security be something that you delegate out to an IT organization. Getting that mindset change was a journey. We're still on it. We're having good success, but it's something that you need to continue to be vigilant on. I think that's it. I think that was the, not sure if there's another slide there. No, there wasn't. Okay, so that's it. So that's it. That's the Cisco story around data security.
Great. Thank you, Desmond. I appreciate it very much. So I think we're going to move to the next survey question. So this is question number 3. Is your management team asking you to implement a security plan around bring your own devices and big data? And will it be within 0 to 6 months? Will it be within 6 to 12 months or not in 2013? If you could just submit your answer and then pop it in. It'll take a couple of minutes for us to tabulate all the results. So as we're doing that, I'm going to ask all the attendees that if you have a question that you'd like to ask either GK or Des, just type it into your question and answer or to your chat, and we will go to the panel discussion for the next 15 minutes or so. And I do have one question to start for both GK and Des. So question number 1 for GK is, why has security become such an important thing in your mind? It's been around for a number of years. Why are you making it such a priority now? And then could you also just extrapolate a little bit on what you mean by master security management? So that's the question for GK.
Thanks, Phil. That's a good question, and I think security is not a new thing for anyone in this audience. It has been there for several years, and people are addressing it in different ways. But I think there is a change in the landscape, in my opinion. Number 1 is I would like to compare this with some kind of a perfect storm kind of situation. A lot of these enterprise applications are moving into cloud, so that is one side of the scenario. And this explosion of devices, I mean, it is increasing, not reducing anymore. So the amount of data that is coming out of each of these devices. And third thing is people are a lot more collaborative, a lot more social outside of the enterprise. As a result, their awareness, their ability to produce and use data also has increased multifold. So when you put all these pieces together, I think the need for an overall security management has increased multifold compared to past several years. So the whole master security management is similar to the concepts like master data management, or there are a variety of other IT concepts that we have seen in the last several years. I think master security management is the future, where, like Des described in his presentation, that comprehensive view and be able to provide the dashboard in front of a CISO where the data is coming and where it is going. I think that becomes extremely important.
Great, GK. Thanks for that question. So I guess there's one question for the audience, GK, that just came in on the heels of your answer, and that is, from the audience, how does big data play a role in designing the security solution?
Okay.
Is that for GK?
So what I would like to mention is, I think the structured data and data warehousing as a concept is already available in the marketplace. I think the explosion of the unstructured data that is coming out of variety of devices and the cloud adoption is what is causing the enormous amount of data that people need to process. And also the intelligence that is getting built around these dashboards is also context sensitive, and people are being able to apply the relevance for which the decision making patterns are changing on a day-to-day basis. As a result, I think the big data plays a significant role. The definition of big data to me is your ability to process multiple of these variety of data and be able to bring it in a way where not only the C-level folks, but also at a working level, people should be able to interpret this information. I think that is what is actually causing these things. And on top of it, if you look at the emails, documents, social media data, all these packets that are getting captured, and apply that to your business process. Previously, if you take a sales process, it's perfectly fine if you look at some structured data and try to sell it. But now your ability to apply the context and relevance has increased multifold with application of the big data.
Great, thank you, GK. Hey, I also wanted to ask Des. Des, I'd like you to respond to question number one that I had for GK as well, maybe your take on it. So why has security for Cisco become such an important thing in your mind? And yes, it's been around for a number of years, and why are you and Cisco making this such a priority now? And if you also want to comment on master security management, I would love to hear your comments on that as well, Des.
Sure. Yeah. I think probably the answer to the first question is in part of the second question, right? Is big data. If you look at the structured and non-structured in particular, the technologies that are available today to be able to quickly parse through unstructured data and to be able to harvest, not just from a positive perspective, I guess, right? Just to be able to harvest intellectual property from that, to be able to harvest insights from that data that was previously you weren't able to do that just because of the volume associated with the data, and B, the technology wasn't there to be able to effectively parse through that. Now it's there. It's still in its kind of emerging phase, but it's there with Hadoop, with some of the other analytics that are out there, to be able to very quickly take massive amount of data that's unstructured and bring some degree of structure to it, to be able to parse out this type of data from an insight perspective, right, to help you drive sales as an example. But if you can do that as a good guy to be able to drive sales, the bad guys can do it just as easily and discover, IP. So it's a combination of opportunity, but with opportunity threat as well. So I think that's one of the reasons that security has become more of a topic, I guess, than it had been in the past. Something that's more upper mind in the C-level and the C-level discussions. And again, it's just the proliferation of the devices as well. How many people have left have left an iPhone in a cab in New York. You know, I know I have. And what data was on there? How quickly were we able to wipe the data that was on there? Do you have your latest sales forecasts that were on there if you're a sales guy? You know, if you're an engineer, is there a design document that's on that of a product that you've yet to launch? So, you know, the proliferation of devices, the ease of replication of data, the speed at which it can be done, and I think the volumes of data that by themselves, due to the volume, were restrictive or a barrier, let's say, to doing bad things. Now that barrier has been significantly sort of reduced with some of the newer technologies that are out there. So I think that's why it's become more of a topic. There was master data. What is master data? Was that, or master security? Was that the other question that was in there?
Master security management, yes. What is your perspective on that?
I think it's if you're not aware of it, if you're not aware of the fact that there's a need to have an enterprise master security presence, then it's too late. I think it's got to be something that's driven and owned by the business function for it to be effective. I think if it's owned and if the voices are coming from the IT side of the house, then I think its adoption will be hampered. I think it's got to be driven from the business, you know, I think it's you've got to have it. You have to have it, and you have to have we've got to wake up, right? I mean, we're living in a very, very dynamic world that we've got to have a presence, and we've got to do something about it. And I think having a master data policy or a master security policy, enterprise policy, having the ability to not just have it, but have the ability to make it effective and make it meaningful is critical.
Thanks, Des. I have another question that just popped in from the audience. It's from a healthcare member, and the question goes like this: it says security management is never greater than it is in healthcare. You know, with the HIPAA and the other standards, legality standards that we have to meet. How does big data able to support across the LANs, the WANs, the ELANs, the dark fiber, various satellite sites? And what happens when people have a BYOA, you know, bring your own application where they could take someone's HIPAA documentation or an X-ray and put it up in the cloud and then view it from their home in Tahoe, you know, on their laptop or on their tablet? How do you approach problems like this in healthcare from your perspective, Des?
You know, again, it's if you look at the 5 steps, right? The 5 steps are you know, and the most important being the first one, right, is that capture, classify, is know what data you want to secure. Now, I think with HIPAA, we've got a pretty clear guidelines as to what data that is. The second one is, where is that data? Where is it today? You know, what applications is it in? Application security by itself, I think I think application security as a term is probably a legacy term, right? It's not the applications, it's the data that is in the applications. And because there's so much access via cloud, how do you actually just secure that data and the passage of that data? I think that's where things like the Sky-High solution are very, very interesting and very creative, and can help in identify when traffic data that you've tagged as being critical, as it leaves the enterprise, being able to not just track where it's going, but as part of their roadmap, have the ability to control that. So you can designate certain cloud providers, or all cloud providers, as not being suitable for this data type to pass over. And if it passes over this appliance on its way to the cloud, because that's the way you've set up your internal infrastructure, you've got the ability then to encrypt that data as it moves out of the enterprise. So, you know, it's there are solutions that are out there. What's the degree of maturity? They're at a very, very early stage, but it's looking promising.
Great, thanks, Des. Des, I have one more question for you. How did Cisco leverage the partnership with Bodhtree to embark on your security journey? What role did Bodhtree play in developing your security strategy?
Yeah, Bodhtree and Cisco have had quite a long relationship, not just within the IT side of the house, but also within our business unit that develops security products. So, it was a nice partnership, a nice sort of strategic alignment that we were able to come to terms with Bodhtree on. Bodhtree were involved in some of the product testing on CEPM, and it was a very easy step for us then to be able to partner with Bodhtree on taking that knowledge that they have and helping us to deploy the solution across the enterprise. So something that it was kind of a natural step, and the partnership has been going quite well.
Great, thank you. So, question for GK. GK, for people who are looking at implementing security policies, and there's usually quite a bit of user adoption issues, resistance by employees, CIOs are listening and want to know this. How does an organization create a top-down policy and ensure that adoption works throughout the organization?
Good question, Phil. I think, to be honest, there is no easy answer for this adoption, and also, like the way Des described, there are several stages. It's the involvement of a variety of business units and also the business in creating these policies. Sometimes, is there a need for a policy? If so, how do you define those things? I think having that framework and also be able to interactively work with the business, I think that is, in my opinion, the key to success.
Thanks, GK. So I'm going to go back and say, do we have a survey results moderator? We're going to see if we can publish these. Just give us a minute here. Okay, so the first question is, does your enterprise currently have a unified security policy management framework? 53% say no, and 47% say yes. Okay, if we can go to the polling question number 2, from a security perspective, which of the following policies is your highest priority within your enterprise? And out of the 4 possible responses under BYOD and cloud application and big data, E, 46%. So there's a lot of people who have concerns about the BYOD devices and the cloud applications and big data and how to incorporate all that. So that's polling question number 2. Let's go to polling question number 3. Is your management team asking you to implement a security plan around BYOD and big data? And we have 45% say within 6 to 12 months, 18% say within 0 to 6 months, and 36% say not in 2013. So those are our survey comments. GK Des, I'll start with GK first. Would you like any final comments on what you've seen in the survey results and what you'd like our participants in today's webinar to keep in the front of their mind as they go forward? So GK, could you respond first, please?
I think these are pretty reflective of what I presented initially from an industry perspective standpoint, especially the second one where when people say all of the above, that's where I was bringing that perfect storm analogy, where it's no longer an option, that we definitely need to be able to address all these things through some kind of a comprehensive policy management as well as data security. And also, I would like to certainly thank the great partnership that we have with Cisco in terms of delivering some of these solutions and also be able to work on some of the leading edge technologies. As a system integrator, we always enjoyed that for the past several years, and we'll continue to be a part of this whole security journey with Cisco. Thank you.
Thanks, GK. Des?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's got to be owned by the business leadership, and it's got to be top down from that side as well as bottom up. It can't just be, if it's bottom up, you're not going to solve the problem. Top down, make it make a C-level. Somebody at the C-level needs to really own it. I think the other sort of comment I would have is, it can be overwhelming when you sit down and look at it first, but by breaking the problem down, you can begin to make some real progress. And I think once you have a couple of wins under your belt, and once you begin to get some momentum, then it takes on a life of its own, and it's definitely a problem that can be solved.
Des, thank you so much for your time with the seminar today. And GK, thank you for your time as well. Before we conclude and wrap up, we have a random winner who's attended the webinar today that has won a Kindle. And the winner is Jonathan Cox, the Information Security Officer of Sparks Health System. So Jonathan will be reaching out to you by email for you to collect your Kindle. I want to thank our speakers today and all the attendees for attending today. If you have any questions or would like to chat with Bodhtree.more, you can always reach out to us through our website, www.bodhtree.com. And I appreciate everyone's time this morning and this afternoon and this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.